Welcome back to What Was That, where we discuss tech and business news, the world of tech and business news in the week that just went by, from an Indian lens and a cultural and a tech and a numbers lens. Nitesh being more of the numbers guy, me being more of the general. I read one sentence and let's just ride with it. So, hi Nitesh,
Hello.
how is Bangalore doing?
About the same.
Knowing. That's good, right?
Yeah.
Like boring is good. Startup life has taught me boring is good. Boring is best.
Not to get all political, but one of our main politicians said that even God can't help Bangalore Road. So it's nice that we have that level of self awareness. I'm okay with it. No, it's
Well,
improving.
my is like that. Even God can't help us. That should be a fun discussion.
All right, let's get to it.
Yes. What's on your roster? What's been going on?
I'll start with a hypothetical question. Let's say I'm a founder and you're an investor. We'll not specify VC, P, whatever. You're an investor, and I come to you and I say, Vineet, I have this great idea. Why don't you give me a bunch of money and I'm going to set up an oil refinery in Jamnagar? Or if I say, okay, how about I set up a sea link? I construct a sea link in Bombay from Bandra to Kurla. What's your response going to be?
Sounds like a lot of money.
That maybe I'm a few decades late and a few $1 billion short?
Now. Oh, you mean like if you came to me now? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
He said,
I
here's what I want.
say that's you're like more also ran than a lot of the ecosystem, and that's saying a lot.
Right. And there's somebody's already solved that problem, right?
Yeah.
So what are you even going to do? That leads me nicely into my first story. Lenskart is looking at an IPO, maybe in the next few months or so. It isn't clear yet, but they've declared their intent to go ahead with it. And no one knows what valuation they're going to put it at. Nobody has, except the investors, have had a closer look at the books. So while this is not investing advice, I just want to take a moment and just point out how cool it is that someone decided to start a venture in this space and managed to scale it despite there being Luxottica in the room and owning basically the whole industry, all of it. And it's not like these guys didn't know what they were getting into. There are three co-founders. One of them was the BDM for Ray-Ban in India. He worked for Luxottica. So they knew exactly what Luxottica is, what sort of stranglehold they have on the optical market globally. I mean, you know that expression that VCs use, that this is the 800-pound gorilla, that cliche. Luxottica collects 800-pound gorillas as a hobby. That's what they do, right? And so for someone to say, no, I'm going to start an eyewear brand, and to raise the level of funding that they have, but even before that, to just survive for as long as they have, I think is really cool.
It is very cool. But in one way, it's very cool to attack a very big gorilla. Luxottica, don't sue me. It's a metaphor. I don't mean you're a gorilla. But also, it seems like whenever I used to read on Reddit about Luxottica and people are telling people about Luxottica the first time, it's like, oh, the lenses are super cheap, right? Is this the brand you're paying for? But in one way, doesn't that make it an obvious market to attack?
No, so it's more insidious than that. Luxottica controls the manufacturing. They have exclusivity arrangements for brands of basically all the designer labels. They invented the idea of designer sunglasses, right? They control the manufacturing, they control the distribution, they buy optical distributors also. They control the retail, they own Sunglasses Hut. And as of 2 years back, they even merged with Essilor. So that half of the equation which was missing, even that they've rolled in. This company
Like
owns the industry.
owns the industry, but more importantly, owns the distribution. Because otherwise, your distributor has enough data, like which is also the Zepto Cafe example we discussed, right? That if the distributor has enough data, eventually they can just launch their own brand. So it is very important, like including, the ITC discussion we had last week. It is very important to control the distribution. Otherwise, manufacturing alone is not enough. You need distribution clout also.
Yeah. So you need to solve all three problems, no? In physical goods, manufacturing, distribution, and point of sale, owning the customer, like who owns them. I think it's incredible what they've done. There are okay, so I until 2 years or 3 years back, I wore glasses for a good 15 years, 15, 20 years until I underwent LASIK. And I've I started with having a gold-plated spectacle frame when I was 13 or 14 because there were no other options. And those
Yeah.
glasses, which were actually glass, which if you drop would shatter. From there, so I was an early adopter to Lenskart. Their initial customer experience was terrible. The stores were terrible. The website was terrible. There were all sorts of dark patterns. It was not a pleasant experience. My thesis is, and I have nothing to back this, okay? No data to back this. My thesis is that something changed in Lenskart in either 2021, late 21 or early 22. It This is a decade old company, right? And they suddenly transformed because, like, for example, when they started, the one of their first investors said, okay, you are the upstart that's going to kill Titan. So you're doing spectacles, and that's fine, but you should also do bags and watches because that's what Fast Track had just succeeded at spectacularly then, right? They said you should also do bags, you should also do watches. So they had a watch cart. Lenskart operated a website called Watch Cart.
Oh,
They operated a website called Jewels Cart because how difficult it is to do what Tanishq does. Yeah, so that's the advice they got in the early to 2010s, and I think one of their later investors, I think this is a hypothesis, but one of the later investors gave the opposite, which is they gave excellent advice. Suddenly, it's a different company from the one that I was familiar with. They acquired Ondays, which is a Japanese brand, like 3-decade-old Japanese brand, which is more on the premium end. And more importantly, they stopped selling other brands in their stores completely. They said we are not a retailer. We are building our own company, our own brand, and so we're going to discontinue sales of your Ray-Bans and whatever other brands they were selling.
yeah.
Right? Only Lenskart brands are available in Lenskart stores now, and it's the customer experience now, because three of my family members still do wear glasses, is fantastic. It's seamless. The products are great. The retail experience is great. It's
That's very
this
interesting.
is a
I've bought some Lenskart for my piddling power of like zero point 0.5 and 0.25. And like when we were discussing this story, and I was like, will the shares also be like their glasses, which means last 6 months be all shiny and then just maybe fall apart. But you're saying the product has actually improved, so I should try it again.
so they have their own manufacturing facility now, which is like a gigafactory for spectacles, somewhere in rural Rajasthan. And I think that's when the switch flipped. I think, as best I can tell, I tried to construct a rough timeline. So they're making the product themselves. They have a lot more control over the quality because this is a very fragmented market. Like, regardless of market share, which is huge and in the double digits, Luxottica sets the paradigm for the entire industry. So even though you have plenty of small Chinese factories which make frames and increasingly even lenses, but finally it's Luxottica who decides what you're going to be able to get away with in terms of pricing. So something has changed. They have Lenskart has set up a subsidiary in Singapore with $100 million of funding raised there, which is just going to invest in these new age optical brands and startups around the world. That's long term thinking, and yeah, if things go on like this, then who knows? In 20 years, Lenskart might be the Luxottica of the world. Hmm?
We might have a weekend Bandra Worli sea link.
We are seeing one being constructed
Yes.
like in front of our very eyes, and that's really cool. They're aiming for a $10 billion valuation roughly because nothing is sure yet, and Luxottica is about 70. So it's just a factor of seven now, right? It's huge, but it's not too far off also.
But I'm guessing, I think I already know your answer to this question. Could this have been done without the internet, without e-commerce?
No, no, absolutely not. Even though they
Right.
cracked
You can just
retail,
sidestep the
yeah,
distribution.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So they were able to get those numbers in the beginning, which then justified having stores. And now it's quite a significant chunk of it is store led. I'm waiting to read the red herring prospectus of Lenskart whenever it comes out. But yeah, this is good. There might be one downside though. Uh, with the exception of Dipinder Goyal, there haven't been any CEOs of listed companies who have concurrently been sharks on Shark Tank India. Piyush Bansal has been a shark for 4 seasons now. If the company does go public, I don't think he'll be able to sustain both because both are significant time commitments.
Well, that's an interesting one. Dipender Goyal is like basically he was a one-off, right? And
Yeah, and he was there for 1 season, and even then, not for many episodes, which makes sense. Being a public company CEO is a big drain on your time.
and Zomato or Eternal is like doing a lot of stuff, like, and they're shipping super quickly. They're shipping new products at like super quickly. So yeah, he's busy.
And plus it's the optics also, no? Like if
Optics.
hypothetically, if it is if I'm a shareholder in a hypothetical company and the shares are plummeted 50% in the last 6 months and the CEO is on Shark Tank, I am going to turn up for one of the earnings calls and tell him, boss, focus on this first, or else step aside and let somebody else do this. You be a full-time shark.
If Elon Musk can run 6 companies and one government, why can't one founder do one listed company and one Shark Tank?
I think that's got to be a new record. That's the longest we have gone without bringing up Musk.
Oh, he's a great guy. He's a great guy. Absolutely a great guy. Best person ever. That's all you'll hear from me. Best person ever.
Yeah, so that's number one. Lenskart, I don't know what the future has in hold for it, but just for as far as they've gotten, well done.
That's very interesting. And I know this is not investing advice, but maybe this was buying advice. Maybe I'll try them again. It has been only 3 years since I last tried their lenses.
As a customer, yes.
Okay.
The shares, I don't know. No one knows. The price hasn't isn't out yet. But do walk in. The retail experience has improved significantly.
Yes, yes. This wasn't going to be a story for me, but I was like, as an aside, this is very interesting. And since Elon Musk came up, so he's launched Grok 3. Grok is the X.com's AI, like what used to be Twitter is now X. Their AI robot, whatever. And they've launched the latest version, which he says is the smartest. And interestingly, another interesting aside is this one explains its reasoning, which we saw first with the Chinese model, DeepSeek. How Grok is explaining its reasoning as it goes. But also, this says that this is the most intelligent. Some people say it's just, they're giving the benchmark. Some people say it's actually very, very intelligent, this system. So, my story as an aside is just a lot of people have been asking it uh, who are the top 5 people or groups spreading disinformation on X? In universally, the common answer, take a guess, who is number one?
Nice. Very nice. But at least you can claim objectivity for the model then, no?
Yes, yes, maybe it's all planned that way. That look, my product is so sincere and so real that and so unbiased that my product is accusing me of being the biggest misinformation spreader in the world.
Yeah.
And I have now seen at least 20, 30 different people put screenshots of them having tried this. I've tried this myself. The answer was the same. Elon Musk. Number Donald Trump. Number 3, Hexeth, Pete Hexeth. Pete Hexeth is the number 3 is very, very different. It's Robert F. Kennedy, the new health secretary. So Grok is very interestingly accusing these people of being the most fake news people in the world. So But that was just an aside. My actual first story is the insidious spread of ChatGPT to where it should not be spreading. Should not, of course, being subjective, but I like a subjective opinion. But I think we should all be able to agree on certain things. Like ChatGPT written stuff is now all over LinkedIn. It's completely changed how people write posts on LinkedIn because you upgrade to LinkedIn Premium and it automatically says start writing using AI, or if you want to comment on someone and build your network or do whatever networking, however people think AI LinkedIn works, you can comment through AI if you have LinkedIn Premium, which is okay. Bots talking to bots, the dead internet theory, that's the future of the internet, sure. But interestingly, what I saw in Times of India print last weekend, last Sunday, they ran a mental health column.
Right.
And the advice being given to this girl who's feeling very bullied by her family into supporting her brother, not feeling supported by family herself, yeah, I have to do all the housework, blah, blah, blah. The answer is completely ChatGPT. And it's very easy to tell that it is ChatGPT because ChatGPT writes in a certain way. ChatGPT is trained on certain sources, like we've discussed in the past. It is primarily used for writing SEO content slop for the internet. It's proliferating into mental health columns for teens. And like it's breaking it down into points. Acknowledge your feelings. Colon.
That's
So
the
I'm not.
first thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
always.
Reframe the situation. Focus on your education, career goals, blah, blah, blah. Have a calm conversation with your mom instead of protesting. Now, like we've discussed in the past, how do you tell that something is written by ChatGPT? I am at that stage where I can very easily tell because I do a lot of writing and I run the content team for my own startup, where
Right.
we, of course, we have to write SEO slop, right? Is this part of the game now? You have to write SEO slop so that Google pushes your landing pages to the top. But I am still not yet personally at that place where I can tell why or what is the tell that this is GPT written, which is where your friend's advice came in very handy. Your friend who written back, and let me just read out
Right.
some of the your friend who had analyzed one article on the internet and given these very, very clear tells, right? If you're serious about something, you should do something. Uh, honestly, the something. Starting with honestly, comma, the. Then the casual talk, like this is where X steps in like a boss, right? So a bunch of tells. It's very interesting, and I was looking this up also on the internet, and there are like so many articles on Reddit also how to tell if something is written by AI. Any thoughts on this topic? I am like mental health is one issue where we absolutely do not need to see AI written slop, especially in print. Or are we at a stage where people don't trust print anyhow? It's like on its way out and it's killing itself on the way out.
Mm, Really, this is where you draw the line? One of the places where you draw the line?
Yeah. Mental health columns for teens, in print. Yes. I know Times of India.
Ha, so already the uh, expectations are quite low. And as it is, this is not a problem that can be solved. What that girl who wrote in is feeling is not going to be solved by a newspaper column, even if it is written by a human.
But then why have a mental health column? Why even
Uh,
that trend?
People read it. We are talking about it. How do you know that girl even exists? It's also written by AI.
That is something I have not actually thought about. Yes. And
Yeah, it's great for engagement. No, is um, I think a good majority of relationship columns, sex advice columns, I would imagine have questions created by the person answering them. So this is great. At least somebody put in the effort to formulate the question. That is definitely written by a human. You can tell the question itself. And so I'm good. At least there's a human on one side of this interaction, even if they're pretending to be someone else.
it's not bots talking to bots just yet.
So I'm okay with it. People are reading it, people are
And also
employing it.
AI getting into places where it had neighbors are.
Yeah, this is not
Again, we
hallowed
are
ground.
thinking about 1 day times of India. Is it even worth? That is
Exactly. So this isn't hallowed ground, right? It's okay. It's fine.
yes.
I'm
What's story number
totally
two?
fine. Again, maybe this becomes my shtick, but we'll start with a question, or rather, a statement this time. The central tenet of investing is that you buy low and sell high. That's like whatever sophistication is piled up on top of that. The underlying core truth of investing is that you buy low and sell high. Those two things need not happen in that sequence. You can also sell high and then buy low, which is called shorting, right? This is common enough in listed companies. You're sure that this company is going to have some bad news or whatever, and or it's just outright fraud, and you say, "I'm selling the shares today, and in a month's time or so, I'm going to cover my position, buy back at a lower price from the market, and square it off." This can be done in private markets also in a very specific way. Let's say you're a founder and you have a startup with all the hype in the world behind it, and every successive round has got higher and higher and higher valuations. And what you perceive to be the peak is when you sell, exit, and leave somebody else holding the bag, right?
Yep.
That's one half of the trade where you started a small company, you built it up, built hype, built fundamentals, whatever, and you sold at the top. But that's just half of it. The perfect trade is when you can sell it at the top and then later buy back your own company for a fraction of the money that you got by selling at the top. That's the perfect trade that an entrepreneur can do in private markets. It's not good, it's morally icky. I don't think anybody can intentionally plan this out and execute it perfectly, but it does happen. And when that happens, it's cool.
Well, our favorite foreign tech founder, Adam Newman, Money.
Yeah, exactly. That's the most textbook example. Like if you open up the dictionary for this trade, it's going to have his mugshot there. He sold SoftBank. He sold WeWork to SoftBank at its peak, cashed out $1 billion, and then when WeWork crashed, he made an offer for $100 million to buy it back, which was nobody took that offer seriously, but it was such a wonderful fuck you, a final fuck you to Masa. Brilliant. Okay, so we have an Indian example panning out. Sirona, which makes among other things menstrual cups. So they have a good roster of products. They were acquired by something called the Good Glam Group, which just rolls off your tongue, doesn't it? It was earlier called My Glam, if memory serves, and they were trying a twin strategy of acquiring consumer brands as well as acquiring talent management brands. So on the one hand, they bought Mounds Co and Sirona and a few other smaller companies, and on the other hand, they bought the talent management agencies which run the accounts for various influencers, saying we'll have one feeding off the other, and we'll have the talent also in house. They'll get the sales, and our CAC will be lower. Whatever. That was what they sold to investors, valued as a unicorn once upon a time, fallen on hard days. So they had acquired Sirona. They had acquired a stake about 2-3 years back, and the terms of the deal were that they would cash out Sirona's founders completely in a year or two. They defaulted on those payments. Sirona's guys went to court, and they finally got all the money out in October. In total, they Good Glam spent about 450 crores on Sirona. And in the 6 months from October to now, apparently sales have nosedived to a fifth of what they were when the founders were still around, because these guys took the cash and left. And suddenly, because of the troubles at Good Glam itself, Sirona was rudderless. I'm presuming this is conjecture from what the Economic Times article says. The drop in sales has been put in print, stating citing an anonymous source in the company. It's alarming, even if it is a little exaggerated. It's still alarming. There shouldn't be such a steep fall. And so last week, or rather this week, Sarona's founders have bought back the company for 150 crores, including taking on the debt and everything. So Good Lamb probably got even lesser than that for it, which is a great trade. You build a company, you sell it for 450 crores, and 6 months later, buy it back for 150 crores.
My story number two is what feels like the end of the first wave of AI specific hardware. There were two products that announced themselves at like last year or end of 22-ish to great fanfare. One was the Rabbit R1, which was a Yeti box with like a tiny screen. Pish said that it had a thing called a large action model. You tell it what to do and it would operate any app for you, like Photoshop actions, layers, whatever. I don't know how that would work. I can't even imagine trying to edit an image in Photoshop by voice
Voice.
now without even looking at a proper screen. Right. So I don't know what they were thinking. And of course, like the basic stuff that everyone talks about, like order food for you, which they never managed to deliver on. So the Rabbit R1 came on at some point. Someone hacked into it and realized there is just an app built on basic Chinese hardware. It's just an Android app. It's an Android phone with a tiny screen and no phone. So it could just have been an Android app, which a lot of people are also asking why, if the AI is actually so good to do your stuff for you, why can't it just, like we already have here, all of us, right? Why can't it just be a, meanwhile, the voice systems like Siri, Alexa, and all are way behind. So why do we need dedicated hardware? Why can't these just be apps? So it turns out what these people claim was that the Rabbit R1 was actually just an app based on simple Chinese hardware. The other one was this thing called the Humane AI pin, founded by these two ex-Apple people. Uh, it was a lapel pin, ye big. Lots of marketing, lots of fancy Apple level marketing, fancy videos. They did.
Very cool demo video. It was cool, the video.
Those guys need to smile. Okay. Yeah.
But it made me want the product.
Well,
Although in hindsight, I don't know if I would read like this very often.
Robert asked in your lie. You absolutely must listen to this podcast. Aren't you like excited? That's what that video felt like to me. Well, I'm not going to link that in the we don't have show notes. What am I like for the we should have show notes. So yeah. So the Rabbit R1 went nowhere. There was no follow-up. There was no R2. And at some point it came out that the guy who ran the company had done a mean point earlier. So seemed like this also was like a quick cash grab. It went nowhere. The Humane AI pin was basically, yeah, this small device with no screen, but you can talk into it. It can apparently hear you. You can do phone calls. It has this seeming bubble where only you can hear it and nobody else can. And if you want a screen, you put your hand in front of it and it has a green laser sort of thingy that will project on your hand.
Right.
These were the two most talked about sort of AI wearables. Not wearable, well, R1 was not a wearable, but AI products, AI hardware, dedicated AI hardware. Humane, now that first product was a total flop. Sold for $700 in the beginning, then they dropped the price to $500, sold a few thousand units at max, and then they were trying to sell themselves to HP for $1 billion. Well, this week they sold themselves to HP for $116 million, which is before they had a product, they'd raised money at about $450 million. So that's a big drop from there. But also considering that they could never figure out why this product existed and which bore out in the market also. Nobody bought it. $116 million doesn't seem like all that bad. HP has said it's going to basically now use this technology to put into its hardware. So basically what will happen is your next HP printer will be like, hi HP, can you please print me 3 pages? And it'll come back saying, no, sorry, you've run out of blue ink, so therefore you can't do it. So that's what could, and of course, paper jams. And of course, you don't have a subscription, so you can't print it all, even if you have all the ink in the world that you need.
Right.
So, which also brings me to a question that should all products be B2C to begin with? Or like, In fact, they even released ads a few months ago about enterprise or applications for enterprise customers. This can basically, okay, this can fit inside your phone, this can fit inside a TV, this can fit inside a printer, this can fit inside a vacuum, and do voice activated stuff to run everything.
Yeah.
So they clearly decided to pivot to the enterprise market and sell themselves out.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's been going on end of the first week, and there's no other dedicated AI customer hardware dragon team.
Yeah. Okay. Bunch of thoughts.
Yeah.
First of all, if not for Kickstarter, most people would be afraid to use B2C as a or D2C as a go-to-market strategy. Kickstarter changed that, right? Because you could promise a product, get the funding, and then go back and build it. Earlier, you didn't have that luxury. So, if even a small part of what they built while building this product has applications in other hardware, that's cool. Even if it is HP, which means it's probably going to somehow end up, making customers' lives miserable somehow because they have a knack of doing that. But even then,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's cool that they managed to build something because $100 and change million is still more than zero, right? Which is what they would have got otherwise.
This is effectively an acqui-hire with a little bit of
Yeah,
attached,
yeah.
which is a
So
big
that's a
trade-off.
great price. That's a great price for it. What else? My only frame of reference for both these products was that MKBHD video. He panned both these products separately. That these are terrible. How can you launch a half-baked product into the market with so much hype and fanfare? And then a month later, MKBHD launched Levels. What was it?
That wallpaper app, right? That was
Yeah, the wallpaper app. A month later. So spectacular lack of self-awareness there. But his original point still stands. Don't. It's okay to exaggerate a little. I think in tech, people have come to expect that. But there's there is a line, however nebulous it is, and once you go past it, somehow all these people tend to go way past it. They don't just cross the line. They can't even see it in their rearview mirror anymore. In terms of what
uh,
they're saying.
two thoughts on that. One is Apple Intelligence,
Fair, yeah.
right? Like one of the largest companies in the world. Again, announcing a lot of stuff with great fanfare. And what does it practically do? Oh, now you can circle an area on your camera app and it'll tell you what it is. Okay, like Google Lenses existed forever.
Yeah.
And again, okay, maybe these are useful products, but yeah, the hype is like way ahead. Secondly, most of AI is future whatever, right? Here's what it will do. Oh, AGI is coming, AGI is coming, AGI is coming. So then maybe there's a demarcation that it's okay on the valuation side, on the VC side, go pitch whatever. On the media side, go pitch whatever, but not when you're selling to consumers. Because apparently, like all said and done, the iPhone 16 is not a pure play AI hardware, right? It still has everything else. This is just an add-on. Okay. So yeah, maybe don't
Fair.
mislead consumers as much versus
But if you're fibbing to the media, it's going to get to at least some of your consumers. No? At least some percentage of iPhone users read TechCrunch.
but then all of the last 3 years in tech development is about, oh, look, now there's AI in your souk, right? Microsoft is saying this week, oh, we've invented a new state of matter. And people on the internet are all like, dude, can you please fix Teams first? So, yeah. So that's the entire tech industry then, right? Like talking about some mythical future unicorn. Well, unicorn is a loaded word in this, whatever, but some fantasy being
Right.
called AI that will do everything for you. But meanwhile, it's like, okay, it's an interesting thing. I use it, but if it didn't exist, would my life meaningfully change? No. No. Okay.
Which makes sense, no? Consumer electronics is not easy to build.
It is not. So then the question is, what comes first? Build it first and then sell it, or sell it first and then build it? Because you need a lot of money and lot many years to build it. How do you sustain yourself till then? Which is exactly what the startup industry is based on, right? Like we earn money to build the product, which is where the VCs come in.
I just remembered Have you watched HBO's Silicon Valley?
Yes.
So in that, Gavin Belson, who is like the bad guy, at least in the early seasons, he owns that mishmash of Google and Microsoft. That is
No
Hulu.
libraries. Elon Musk's other South African friend. Absolutely.
That came later. Huli, he owns Huli, right? He's the CEO of Huli. When he sees the algorithm or some product that these guys have built in a garage, the startup guys, he makes an offer on the spot, and he tells one of his employees that these guys, they always go after the consumer market. Enterprise is where the money is. So if Humane had just stuck to, here's a product we have, go to GE, go to HP and say, look, just embed us in your microwaves and your refrigerators and your printers. That's it. That's all they had to do.
Which, after their whole journey, is what they're doing now.
They've been forced to do it now. It's what they should have started with in the beginning. And this is a great lesson for startup founders in general, because we have more visibility of consumer brands. We tend to go after people like us, we tend to go after that market. And it's a huge blind spot.
Right. B2C is glam.
Yeah.
Like my own startup is like squarely now in the B2B enterprise space.
And it's much easier to scale. There are a lot fewer variables. Expectations are very clear. You won't have your entire. I'm not talking about your startup specifically, but you won't have your entire business blown up by 2 or 3 bad Google reviews.
And also like 30-40% of your revenue won't go straight back to Google and Facebook.
Yeah,
Performance.
exactly. So of the 10 people who will watch this, if one of you is thinking of or has a startup, maybe over the weekend consider if there might be an enterprise application for what you're doing. Just think about it.
Yeah, before and do it before Marquez Brownlee calls you the worst product ever. That's not that can't be fun.
Yeah.
What's story 3 for you?
Okay, this is a fun one. Are you a James Bond fan?
Sort of. Kind of, sort of. Comes and goes in phases.
Okay, so who's your favorite Bond?
The new one. Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig?
Actually, no, Pierce Brosnan. Golden Eye. Golden Eye is still my favorite Bond movie.
Fair. So I think your favorite Bond, like your favorite supercar, if you're into cars, is the one that you saw when you were between 15 and 20, in that age bracket?
Golden Eye was 95,
Right.
94.
Yeah, 95.
Yeah, I was 15 then. So yeah, that's
So it gets imprinted. Your favorite supercar, maybe your favorite pinup model, and your favorite Bond is decided then. Anyways, uh, the Bond franchise was part owned by MGM Studios. How it got there is really interesting. Maybe if we have time, we'll talk about that. When Amazon bought MGM, they also got James Bond along with it. But the producers who part owned the franchise, but who had very restrictive creative rights over Bond, they had basically creative control, creative sign off, the final sign off of who's going to be the next Bond, what is the broad trajectory of the character going to be, how many movies we're going to make, what can and cannot be done with this quote unquote franchise. All of that was still with that brother sister duo, the step brother and sister duo, Baba Broccoli and her step brother, Michael G. Wilson. Michael G. Wilson.
Michael G.
So
Wilson.
they consider themselves custodians of the Bond legacy, which was started by their father and a co-founder. So for the last 5-6 years, there hasn't been a new Bond movie that has gone into production. Daniel Craig's reign is over. They haven't decided on a new Bond, and it's Bond is stuck in limbo because whatever Amazon proposed after the acquisition, the siblings just said no to. Especially Baba Broccoli, she was like more in control. She said, "No, you're not doing that. You're not going to do that." And every time Amazon executives would pitch something that, how about we do this? How about we do this? What if we make this into a franchise? And she detests that word. She said, this is not a franchise. You're not, this isn't Marvel. You're not going to do that. And every time they would say, no, see, if Amazon tried to flex their muscle that, we own the IP now or whatever, her answer is always, go read the contract. I have creative control. We're not going to do this. And so finally, now last week, these guys have been like they're senior citizens now, both of them. And so they said, yeah, that's it. We're stepping off, and Bond belongs to Amazon now, free and clear. So expect to see a lot of new Prime series.
Do we know whom they were proposing? The Amazon web?
No, it wasn't even like, okay, these are all rumors, but the way Amazon even approached it, according to a fantastic Wall Street Journal article of all things, I think we should have show notes just to link that article. It's that bloody good about the creative tussle happening behind the scenes. They Amazon decides IP by the numbers, right? Because they're a tech company. They're going to say, okay, this is the demographic we want to target with Bond. And so we need to have a protagonist who ticks these boxes, maybe more inclusive, maybe if they're targeting women audiences, maybe, okay, this is just a hypothetical, maybe a female Bond, which I'm okay with, which I suspect even Baba Broccoli is okay with, as long as it is organic and it makes sense, right? Not because it's been forced down anybody's throat. Because remember, Bond, yes, we have a lot of nostalgia for it, but if you really sit down and think about it, the brand is a sellout. The property is a sellout. Everything, you know, which brand of watch Bond wears, which car he drives, which suit he wears, and all those rights are up for sale, and it's a big deal. Aston Martin would not have survived the last 50 years if not for Bond. There are still newly minted millionaires and billionaires who go out and buy Aston Martins because of that Bond fantasy, because Bond drives an Aston, right? So this isn't a pure brand. And in a callback to our Lenskart story, after the Pierce Brosnan era was over, these guys okayed a total refresh of the character, made him so much grittier. I mean, Daniel Craig's Bond is as far removed from the Roger Moore Bond as you can imagine. Right?
Yeah.
They're opposites. Opposites. Roger Moore was campy. He didn't take himself seriously. He was having fun, and Daniel Craig's Bond is so much more intense, so much more physical. So for Barbara and her brother to even sign off on that, it was a big gamble, and it paid off. Skyfall was the most successful Bond film of all time. So it's not like this is some sacred cow, right? That's not the issue here. The problem, the crux of the creative differences that these guys had was, I suspect, with Amazon trying to build a franchise out of this, try and somehow replicate what Marvel has done. Create a money spinning machine, a money printing machine, which she resisted. And right,
I have some suggestions. So one is the new Bond. Now that it's open, I can think of a guy who's now has got some spare time. Very muscular. He's bald, but very muscular, like very very well built. He's got quite a bit of a business spirit. Very well connected. Owns a media business.
but unfortunately, he looks more like a villain than Bond himself.
It's a villain. So I saw a tweet today morning that James Bond is so out of touch. The movies like Doctor No, the villain, basically a tech giant who sells rockets to the government, but secretly wants to bring back the Reich. I mean,
Right.
imagine a villain like
Uh, it was Tomorrow Never Dies, I think, where you have a media magnate who's trying to fuel war between the West and China. So when somebody actually asked Baba Broccoli that, do you see the parallels, like how Musk is now growing so powerful, and she's like, I did that in '97. Some of her quotes are so bloody good. Hers and her dad's. Like she often quotes her dad on set that you never let temporary people make permanent decisions. Oh, lovely. Another one that her dad said about his business partner, who co-owned the rights to Ian Fleming's novels, that he was the kind of guy who would send back the food even at the Last Supper. So good. Some of their quotes. So these are really, this is old school, Gilded Age Hollywood, right? But they've managed to shepherd this franchise, let it evolve, let it grow. Uh, Everything about it is so iconic. Bond girls are a thing. Even now, even in the late 20s, Bond girls are still a thing. And they've somehow managed to keep it acceptable. Maybe we all lower our standards when it comes to Bond because of nostalgia. Like some of the things,
Yeah, but the Daniel Craig Bond women were sort of like fairly evolved, right? Not the same.
true.
Like,
So now,
like even with Pierce Brosnan, we had the Dr. Christmas Jones. Christmas
right.
only comes once a year. Right. And
I think
then
she was there in the whole movie just for that punchline.
pretty much, fairly sure she was named just for that joke. So Xenia on her top, all those names. So,
Right.
but yeah, with the Daniel Craig women were fairly evolved, like Eva Green's character and all.
Oh, so good. So good.
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
happen to watch Skyfall in theaters?
Sorry, I think I'm losing the word.
Skyfall.
Not in the theater.
Oh, what an experience. If the trend continues and these movies keep getting re-released, if Skyfall comes back, I would definitely watch it.
By the way, if it's still playing Interstellar IMAX remaster, it's an
Yeah,
experience.
amazing.
It's an
It
experience
is.
to man.
Agree.
Like, half an hour, I was like biting my nails, like, and I've seen that movie like 6 times already.
Right. The Water Planet, especially. Oh, love that.
My third story, the Blume State of the Union, no, not State of the Union report, the Indus Valley report. They release one every year
Right.
talking about what's going on in the Indian ecosystem. Bloom being a very active and very seen as founder friendly VC firm, early stage VC firm. So they release this report every year. It came out yesterday afternoon, yesterday as of taping. So this was Friday the 21st. It came out, and I used to think it was fairly interesting, but now I take back everything I said. It's like a basic consulting company report, uh, but it does show a few things of where the ecosystem is headed because, like, the whole startup ecosystem reads this. And it's really funny. Like, Bloom has a big following, right? Because a bunch of startup founders want to get investment from Bloom.
Right.
So there's a lot of signaling happening also. You go on Twitter and like they announce this a few days before that is coming out this day. In Bangalore are actually tweeting, sitting in a cafe, waiting for the report to come out. One guy yesterday was like, oh, here, a top shot of a coffee cup and a phone with the Bloom report open and he's like sitting at third wave Koramangala and, time to read. So much signaling going on.
That sounds like a religious ritual. No?
It sort of has become that. It's like, so Bangalore startup culture. So there's this very famous tweet. Like, what am I even saying? But there is this very famous tweet in the ecosystem, right? The Bangalore startup culture is like people do the same thing that people everywhere do, but here, oh my god, it's so Silicon Valley core. So, for example, people will be like, "Oh, I just got off the auto and paid with UPI." Bangalore today is so amazing. Right. So a lot of these things is just got this culture where, oh my God, I'm in Bangalore. So it's like this really futuristic type of thing. And so much of it is
Well,
absolutely sickening.
peak,
Yuck,
peak
founders.
Bangalore, peak Bangalore moment as a caption anywhere has me gritting my teeth.
I mean, that Twitter account, Peak Bengaluru, started out really nicely. Like Sony World Junction had its own Twitter account at one point.
Blog called Overheard at Blossoms. I don't know if it's still active. That was nice. Blossoms is the bookstore. Have you been? Yeah.
I know.
So Overheard of Blossoms and really funny. Really, really funny. That was nice.
I used to have a lot of those series. There was this overheard in the Goldman Sachs elevator. I can't even remember if it was a blog or just a Twitter account. I think it was a blog, like in the early 2010s.
Nice.
Really, really funny stuff. So yeah, I think let's be this. Yeah.
I think they took that and gave all those lines to Rishi's character in HBO's Industry.
Oh, I haven't seen Industry. How is it?
Oh, it's fantastic.
I will watch it. I need to rewatch
Super. Like
Silicon Valley.
the Big Shot meets Game of Thrones. The meets Succession. There's corporate intrigue, lots of nudity, and lots of wealth. So it's funny, really, really funny. And they're just as ruthless with their characters, like Game of Thrones. They don't mind metaphorically beheading their lead. So that's always fun. Sorry, you were saying about Bloom?
So yeah, so the report is basic consulting industry report. Nothing much new or big. But it does one thing it does do is signal where all the money is headed. So the two big sections this time are AI and Q commerce, quick commerce. So quick commerce is growing like mad. Like we all know, the Blinkits and the Zeptos have already gotten to the modern bazaar and the modern trade level of margins. They
Right.
want their own 40-ish% cut. Modern bazaar is this huge modern retail chain in Delhi. It's like it's
Right.
Saudi religion. Like I used to bump into people and I know back at like TGIF when I was in my 20s. Now I bump into people I know at Modern Bazaar. Yeah, it's its own religion, own fan following in Saudi.
Right.
So, and now what a bunch of startups are saying also is that the quick commerce guys are getting to that same level of cut that they want, which Amazon also went through. So a lot of people, so FBA, fulfilled by Amazon, so many startups I've spoken to were like, we just can't manage it anymore because it eventually, between the listing costs and the warehousing costs that Amazon charges and the associated fees and the processing fees and the advertising costs that you will inevitably have to pay, it was coming to 40-ish%.
And the advertising is a big chunk of that. The advertising is a big chunk of that.
Yeah, but it was also like a lot of these guys were feeling pressured into it. It's sort of become necessary. Otherwise, nobody's listening to you. The only way to get feedback from the Amazon guys is to advertise. Now people are saying that Blinkit, etc., are getting to the same level of trying to get attention from these Q-commerce players is becoming very, very difficult. So that's my third story. And yes, I think time to wrap up.